Hi, this is Christopher Smith from the American Cannabis Report on PCM-TV, and I'm so happy today to have Maggie Wilson of Fruit Slabs to be my guest. Maggie, how you doing?
I'm doing great. How are you?
Good. It's good to see you finally.
It's good to see you.
I know it's pretty funny. We're actually in the same town, but we haven't ever met each other just because of COVID and all of that. It's such a strange time.
We're in the same town and we're on the same news show.
And the same news show, State of Cannabis News Hour. Can we pimp that? We can push that a little bit, right?
Yeah,
State of Cannabis News Hour together.
Yeah.
That's been a great pleasure. I've met some of the best people that I've met in the industry on State of Cannabis, and it's really been fabulous.
I agree. It's a great group.
So Maggie, if anyone were to Google you today, they would probably find your role at Fruit Slabs. So why don't we just start there, since that's what people will know you for today. And just, I'd love to hear a little bit more about the company and about you and about your role, of course.
So I'm the marketing officer for Fruit Slabs, and we're the first kosher certified edible in California, as well as the first vegan and no sugar added edible. So we really just use real fruit and kosher certified cannabis to kind of deliver the best possible method to use edibles, and not do anything to increase any problems that you may be trying to relieve with cannabis. That's what Fruit Slabs is. They are think of it like an adult fruit roll-up, so that it's like a small square that's like a tiny fruit leather, like those Trader Joe's fruit leathers that you might know about or get. Not sponsored by Trader Joe's, but similarly to that, they're 10 milligrams. They're delicious little fruit leathers, and the brand has been in California since 2015, and it was one of the first healthy edible brands. And we are still a small business, and we have expanded to Washington, and we will be expanding into Oklahoma and Missouri in 2022 as well.
I think one of the most interesting things about Fruit Slabs is maybe the simplest thing, which is no sugar. I mean, every time I take an edible, you have the sugar experience first, up you go, down you come, and then you come onto the cannabis later on, and it's that roller coaster. I think that to me is very uncomfortable, actually. So I think that the no sugar is a huge thing.
I really love hearing your perspective on how sugar interacts with your body, because everybody is so different that someone may not know that that's what's actually happening to them. And they may think that that's the effect of the cannabis. And they'll be like, oh, I don't really like edibles. And they'll just swear off edibles because it's actually the sugar, which is known to cause inflammation and all these other issues that we have in our diet. So it's really interesting to know, because I feel like a lot of people are in the same boat. And that's why Fruit Slabs was created, is because there wasn't something for that person who needed something that didn't have added sugar or was vegan at the time. In 2015, there were a lot of cookies, and with cannabis was still, it's like, I like to think that cannabis is like the industry itself is just a really young toddler at this point. It's maybe about 2 years old, like in a human aspect, because at the very beginning we had, you may not even know how many milligrams were in the thing that you were about to eat, because it probably wasn't even labeled. And now we've come a long way. And we love that there are more people kind of getting into that, reaching into those areas of like functional cannabis, functional food. That really is important, because we know that our diet as Americans, it contributes to a lot of our health problems. So if you're using cannabis as a relief, we want you to be able to do that in an easy way.
Sure. Well, you know what, I heard you say that before, and I just want to let you say this many times as you want to. Functional food.
Yeah.
I thought that was an absolutely brilliant way to talk about it. Functional food is so powerful and so thoughtful. Like we talked about yesterday, I just popped up right away when I heard you say that. So
yeah, I can't take any credit for that. That's absolutely Brandon. That is absolutely
That's great.
Brandon. And it came up in conversation, and I was like, wow, that is absolutely it. always talk about conscious consumption. And when he said functional food, I was like, here we go. We've got a nice little alliteration going on.
There you
And
go.
it's the easiest way to describe it. People know what functional means and people know what food is. And it's the same. It's literally combining conscious consumption, knowing how your body reacts. Like we have 4 flavors right now, and all of them are mango based except one, and one is grape and banana based, and it will put you down. So like it will put you asleep. Everybody who uses it, who has sleeping problems, they love our grape flavor. But people know not to eat some people know not to eat the grape flavor during the day. We have our great friend Jamie over at the Cannabis Kitchen who cannot help himself but eat them during the day and gets so tired. But
all right,
the point is, we know our bodies. We are getting more familiar with our bodies. We know how our bodies function. And like you said, you realized what was happening to you when you would eat sugar. And if more people were aware of that and didn't think that this is normal to, have for my skin to be really broke out or for me to have anxiety, like those are not normal. We don't want those things.
Right. No. Those are not our friends.
Those are not our friends. We want to be high functioning individuals, and cannabis helps us do that. But we also have to consider what we're mixing with cannabis to do that.
Hey, by the way, just so that everybody knows, you mentioned Brandon.
Yes.
Who's Brandon? Tell us who Brandon is.
Brandon is the CEO of Fruit Slabs.
Okay, and Brandon Dorsky, right?
Brandon Dorsky. He's an intellectual property attorney in the state of California and has been in the cannabis space for about 13 years and became the CEO of Fruit Slabs in 2020. He was appointed by our board, actually.
All right. Well, there you go, Brandon. Now you're up.
Yeah,
all right. So you know what I'd love to do, if it's all right with you, Maggie, what I'd love to do is I would love to, so now I know where you are. And by the way, I want to just point out one other thing. You kind of glossed over this quickly, but I think that you just sort of said a very, very important and impactful thing. You're the chief marketing officer of a cannabis company.
Yes.
And you happen to be a female person.
I am a female person, and I'm
a female
also
person
a Black
in the
woman.
C-suite. A female person in the C-suite in the cannabis industry.
Yes. Yes.
Not too many, as I understand.
We are few and far between, but we are growing in numbers. There, especially the females in the C-suite who are dispensary owners, we are seeing a lot more of them come into their space and hold their own. But I love being in the C-suite. I have an amazing team. I could not have asked for a better team of people to work with. I knew them before, I found a love for the product, met the people, developed a friendship, and then came onto the team. So it was really just a wonderful culmination of knowing you really like something and being like, that's what I want to be doing, and going for it and it happening.
Well, you're pretty damn good at it. And I mean, look, I'm a very, very conscious of my being a white guy. So so I'm sort of a negative entity sometimes, and in both aspects of that. So I mean to honor you by saying and by really pointing out, that you are a woman in the C-suite and well deserved, and you're doing an incredible job of Fruit Slabs, clearly.
Thank you so much. I deeply appreciate it. And I love being where I am, and I wouldn't be where I am if it weren't for the white men who are my allies and who raised me up.
Well, that's a perfect segue, as a matter of fact, because what I was going to ask, well done. What I was going to ask was, so now we know where you are today, and what this is the culmination of a lifetime of learning and journeying and venturing and seeking. So I'd really like to kind of go through that part to understand what you've been through. It's been quite a ride, I understand. So, I mean, we could start the beginning if you like. I understand. So you're from Tennessee, I remember it. So let's just sort of start there. You're from Tennessee.
Yes. So I grew up in Tennessee. I was born in Indianapolis, Indiana, and I was adopted by a close family friend. And we moved to Tennessee in 1993. I grew up in a very small town that had about 2,000 people, and then moved into an even smaller town that had about maybe, 1,750 people. Still very, very all
Okay.
numbers. Definitely majority white. So, like Southeast Tennessee, between Knoxville and Chattanooga, are the places most people know. About
Right.
3 hours north of Atlanta, in
And
the middle of nowhere.
your adoptive family was a white family.
My adoptive family was a white family, and I'm
Okay.
half white. My biological mother is white, and my dad's side of the family is Black, Nigerian descent.
Okay.
So I grew up in Tennessee, and most of my mom was older when she adopted me. She was about 42, 43 years old. So most of her children, she had 6 kids already, and most of
Wow.
them were all, yeah, most of them were already grown with their own children by the time she adopted me. So I grew up with a lot of a big family, but most everybody was older than me, including my nieces and nephews.
Wow.
So
Okay.
it was definitely a different dynamic. But my closest sibling was my brother, and he was 5 years older than me. So he was the one that I grew up my whole life around. And he got arrested at 17 for smoking a joint in an abandoned Boy Scout building.
Okay.
And I was 12 at the time, and we were my mother was very big into the Jehovah's Witness organization, which is, you know, a religious organization. So at the same time, I was experiencing wanting to learn other things outside of the church. My brother was got into a little bit of legal trouble. So I asked my mom essentially, like, can I stop going to the church? I'd really like to stop going to the church. She's like, absolutely. You know, you can't bring anything of the devil into the house, because if you're not going to go to the church, that's fine, but these are the rules. And I was like, okay. So as this is happening, I'm in my own little wonderful, wonderful world. And my brother is going through, having to go through community service, because essentially he's gone to court, but he was an absolutely great student, revered in the community, just all around a great guy. And, you know, he was 17, smoking weed with his friends, you know, like most 17-year-old boys would do.
Right. Didn't we all?
Right. So, well, didn't we all? Not me, because my mom told me at 12, she was like, you can't smoke weed, because she was so fearful that even though he got off with just community service, that because of the color of my skin, that would not be the case if I did the same thing. So at 12, she was like, don't smoke weed, you're allergic to it. And I was like,
Wow.
Okay.
Okay.
And why would I not believe her? You know, I'm 12 years old. We all believe our parents when we're 12 years
But
old.
she said it was way worse than just allergic. Didn't she say, like,
Yeah. She's like, you're going to have a seizure. You can't be around it. Do not be near it. Like, do not be near it. And I was like, okay. Like, I took her word for it, because she was always so honest with me. I knew I was adopted from my whole life. I knew that this family chose me, and that I had another family. And I even asked when I was younger, how in the world did you tell me that? Like, how did I know? How have I felt like I've always known? And she was like, well, I was just honest with you. So I was like, well, she was just honest with, oh God, you know.
right.
But
Right.
from a mother's being a mother now and knowing what you will do to protect your child, totally understand. We were in the
Absolutely.
South. Like,
Even if you have to tell a little white lie, if you'll save the kid, you'll tell the lie.
absolutely.
I
Absolutely.
hear you.
So, so that turned into me being very anti-cannabis. I didn't care to learn about. I mean, I was 12 years old. It wasn't really,
You're 12.
it wasn't something I encountered really at all until I graduated high school, or, you know, at the end of high school, really. I was on the dance team in high school. I wasn't drinking in high school. I was just an all around, like, okay, I was a great, like, high school student. And after high school, I was hanging around with a few of my friends, and my really good friend at the time was like, would you please just smoke weed with me? And she's like, I'll take you to the hospital. I promise. If anything happens, I'll take care of you. And I was like, okay, like, all right.
Oh my God.
And I smoked weed, and I was like, wow, I think I might be carrying some patterns that are not true and not healthy for me. So it really, I dove into really understanding and learning about cannabis, and just trying to debunk everything that I had been fed, or everything that I had seen that was representative of stoner culture for the past, I think I was 19 at the time that I smoked weed. So for the past 7 years, I was just trying to kind of debunk everything. And I learned and learned and learned. And then in 2015, when I was 25, I moved to Colorado, and I wanted to work in cannabis when I got there. And I had no idea how. I had no idea even what to do or where to begin. So I just did a Google search, and I looked up like cannabis writing jobs. And I found a weed wedding event guide that was looking for a writer. And I emailed and I wrote in and I sent my resume, and I just thought, I'm probably not going to hear anything. Like, these people will probably get tons of submissions, whatever, that doubt that comes in when we, for some reason.
Right.
But
Right.
she wound up emailing me back, and we hit off a great friendship, and I started working with them. I started as a writer, and when I left the company, the CEO kind of the company's in shift right now, but back in like 2017, she had a child, and we ceased operations. The website's self-running. We don't really have to do anything.
Okay.
So where was I?
So if you may, do you mind if I just interject real quick? So,
Yeah, go ahead.
I think the thing I'm hearing you say is, like so many of us, I think, is you're completely self-motivated, self-taught in
Absolutely.
cannabis, right? There's no encyclopedia. There's very few books. There's a few out there that we can look at and stuff, but really we seek the information. We seek and we work very, very hard to find the truth out there. And then, and I remember now, I've looked up a little bit on your background. So I remember that you went to Tennessee Wesleyan University.
Mm-hmm.
I remember this because I went to Wesleyan University in Connecticut, so that we have that in common. But also, so you are also a teacher and a sharer and an educator, just by nature, I think. So
Absolutely. Absolutely. I remember the day that one of my friends got me an astrology book, and I had to hide it from my mom because it was, kind of on that borderline. Oh, exactly. So I remember hiding it from my mom, but bringing it to school and teaching all my friends how to do their birth charts and how to find their birth charts. And it just comes very naturally. People say that I've had people who are very just natural skeptics of things in general, tell me that I've explained something to them in a way that they actually understood it and it made sense, and it made them stop being cynical about it. And I was like, goal achieved, like, because that's what happened to me. That was my exact experience. I had such a cynical view of cannabis. I was like, it doesn't help anybody. It's not going to help me if it doesn't do, my 12-year-old mind went insane. I'm allergic. What does that mean? What will it do? So it really did come full circle for me. And that's what I love to do for other people, is I love to educate on cannabis and how we can use it in a multitude of ways. And being with Fruit Slabs and being like from the wedding guide to now, I've learned so much. And it all started with literally just being like, I want to do this. I'm gonna send that email. I'm going to send that email, and like took a hit of my cannabis and was like, all right, let's go. Let's do this. Let's work together to make this happen. And I feel like the plant kind of like wrapped her little arms around me in spirit and was like, let's go. And it's just been such a wild ride. Through the wedding guide, I started training to be a cannabis sommelier, and I would do private pairing dinners with everyone from executives at 5-star hotels. We did a cocktail hour for some execs at the Four Seasons, to private dinners with cannabis executives like the men from Dr. Dabber, or a woman who wanted to have her bachelorette party have a cannabis dinner. And we don't infuse the food. We teach you how to identify the terpenes in the cannabis as well as the food, so that you control your interaction with the plant and you don't get overwhelmed by eating too much of it. or eating too much that you don't know what the dosage is. So it's really a self-guided, it's like we're in a sense, guiding you to work with the plant in a way that you may be becoming more conscious of. And then I found,
do you mind if I just ask a quick
Oh,
question?
yeah.
You mentioned something that I've heard you say before, how this is in the context of food pairing with cannabis. You talked about terpene matching.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought
Yes.
that was really, I'd never heard that before. That was fascinating. Can you tell me a little bit more about that?
Absolutely. So we know that we drink chamomile tea at night because it's going to make us tired. So the terpenes that are in chamomile are what elicit that feeling and that not emotion, but that elicit that like tiredness. So if you can identify those things in food, like you're going to eat oranges in the morning, tea at night, you kind of know these things that give you energy or give you or decrease energy. Those same identifying factors are in cannabis, and those terpenes are shared across the lines of the cannabis plant and all of the food that we consume, food, herbs, everything. So we take the time to identify the terpenes that are in the cannabis and then identify food pairings that would match well with that, so that you're getting like a flavor palette, like something that you wouldn't normally experience, so that you're really taking in the flavors of the cannabis and the flavors of the food to kind of create to honestly fire new neurons in your brain, because we have no idea. We have no idea what really can happen when we open up to this. But it's such a fun experience because some people don't smoke, and they are, a lot of people come to the table at the event and they're just like, I'm nervous, I don't know, they're being brought in just, sometimes blindly. And by the end of the night, every night, even if they didn't smoke, they could sit there and smell the cannabis and get familiar with it and look at it just like you would a rose. And they developed a relationship with the plant. And then they go do their own research, because they know we only know what's affecting us. So go and do our own research and look up our own things. They're like, oh, maybe cannabis could help me with this. Because as soon as they inhale.
So when a person goes into a dispensary and the bud tender will say, here, have a smell of this. And sometimes we'll say, I don't know. And sometimes we'll really, really resonate with something. You're saying that that's exactly why, because our bodies are tuned to the terpenes, actually. And so that's what the communication is, really.
Absolutely. Our bodies, they say your nose knows. Our bodies communicate with us all the time. Some people can't stand the taste of cilantro. And it's because their body absolutely does not need it, does not want it. It is almost repelled by it. And that's what the terpenes in the natural environment are for, is to repel predators, to repel and attract predators. It's fascinating.
No, absolutely. No, it is fascinating. The reason I'm diving in a little bit and deep into this is because I'll go back to the beginning. Here you are, growing up in Tennessee, Jehovah's Witness family. You've been told you were allergic to cannabis, stay away from it as a way to protect you in a way. I mean, it was like, that was a little terpene behavior by your mom, actually.
Yeah.
Funny, I guess. But anyway, now from that moment, then all of a sudden you've had this incredibly expansive experience where you've learned so much. And you're far more open to this experience than most people that I speak to. People in the industry will talk about, they talk about sales, they talk about jobs, they talk about data, they talk about whatever, but you have a really serious spiritual journey that you've gone on and that you are sharing with others, which I think is one of the most important things about you. So there you go. I called it out. That's what it is.
No. Well, thank you very much. And it reminded me, because I forgot to mention, it really did come full circle with my mom, because she wound up going into hospice at end of life care in 2015. And the only thing that I like to say, that she's really with me a lot more now that she's transitioned into non-physical. She shows up all the time. So, but she came around to really being like, okay, maybe, you know, I took a transdermal patch and put it on her ankle, like where it's venous. And within about a minute, she had chronic bronchitis at the time. And she was like, what did you just do? She was like, what did you just, you know, she instantly had relief. And she had no idea that what she had told me, I had gone and, like, you know, done my own research and found products that she could use. And by the end of her life, she was more comforted because she was able to use these patches that really did, you know, uh, help her with her chronic bronchitis, because we know cannabis is a bronchodilator. So once you put
Yeah.
something into your bloodstream, it gets there, you know, it cycles through in less than 30 seconds. So when
Right
you
away.
use something on, you know, that's why I was like, what can we use that's going to give you relief? And, you know, she had bronchitis. So I was like, you're absolutely not going to smoke a joint. Like, no
No,
way.
no.
Absolutely. Uh, so it really came full circle to her understanding also that, like, her misconceptions about the plant led her, you know, to do things in her life that she didn't necessarily regret. She was like, oh, I wish I wouldn't have done that. I wish I would
Mm.
have known, you know, I wish I would have known. And that's, you know, I really like for people not to have that same experience of like, oh, I wish I just would have known.
It's just so amazing that she shared so much of herself with you, clearly.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
at the end, you were able to feed it back. You were able to share everything she gave you and other things that you had been caused to learn and share them back with her in a way that's really beautiful. It's a gorgeous story. Thank you.
Yes, you're so welcome. And if it wasn't for her really giving me that freedom at 12 to be like, you should go and learn about other religions. Like, you
Mhm.
absolutely should do that. I don't think I would have learned about cannabis like I would have, because most people, especially growing up in the South, you're not supposed to do that. If you're a Southern Baptist, you're Southern Baptist. You don't need to know anything else about any other religion, because
Right.
that's not Southern Baptism. Like, you know, that's not Southern Baptist, whatever. So I really feel like she kind of opened it up to, at a young age. I was very curious always. So that curiosity really expanded once I started learning about cannabis, and especially when I started learning about how to do cannabis events. And that's where it led me to learning about different states and their regulations, and where the wedding guide was able to really help a lot of people have cannabis at their weddings in a legal way.
Mhm.
Because there was a wiggle that everybody had to do for a long time before cannabis was regulated if you wanted to have cannabis at your wedding. So once I learned that, I started doing my own events where I did start teaching about cannabis and like spiritualism, specifically Reiki, because I'm a Reiki practitioner.
Right.
And I, you know, it led me to all this. And now, now I'm kind of just like, all right, let's go. What's next? You know, but it's been a journey with this plant, and it's been fun.
I read also, Maggie, about in terms of your exploration. So you talked about Reiki, and you talked about, I mean, you seem to me to be a person who's got so many layers. There's so many different sort of pieces of your experience that you're turning around and sharing to people in different ways. So you talked about, this was in another venue entirely, but you talked about how it helped you on a journey to understand your father's past, your
Yeah.
your your birth father's past.
Hmm.
And so that brings in a whole different aspect of your being, right?
Yeah, absolutely. It's really interesting how it's all tied together. It's one of those things that I'm like, I have to, like, actually, I have to write a book about my life, because it, it it's unbelievable at some points. Like, I grew up my whole life not knowing who my father's side of the family was. It wasn't
Right.
until I actually sat down to do research for a book that I was writing that I made an intention and asked the plant to help me, and was like,
Wow.
okay, I think that I'm gonna,
Really?
like, find who I wanted to find them. I wanted to find him. I had no idea who he was. I didn't even have a name. I had nothing.
Oh, wow.
Like, absolutely nothing. I had to do DNA. I had to do a DNA test to
Okay.
verify I was Black. because I had,
Okay.
that's how little information I had, like
Wow. Okay.
literally
Wow.
nothing. I got the DNA results the day, the same day that the woman who adopted me transitioned into non-physical. The day she passed away was the day I got my DNA results.
Come on.
No, I know, right? Like within hours. And of course, who was the first person I was going to call? I was like, oh my God, one door closes, one door swings open. And that was in 2015. And just this past year is when I started doing research for this new book. And I have a leaf blower outside. Hold on. Can you hear that?
I think it's the leaf. No, I cannot, but I think it's the leaf
Right.
blower. He usually hangs outside my place on Mondays. Same guy.
Yeah.
Yeah. But this is unbelievable. I'm glad you took a break because I was about to cry. So thank you for doing that.
Oh, yes, yes.
I just can't believe how not only have these things all happened in your life, but on the same day. It's a little bit too much. That's amazing.
And it gets even better. If you thought you were going to cry, like it gets so much better. One of my Reiki clients brought me this opportunity to get published. And I was like, absolutely. So I pitched it, they bought it. I started writing it. I started doing research. And as I was doing research, I found out that this video came across about this woman finding her family from Nigeria. And I was like, wait a minute, I have these DNA results. I should go back in and it tells you who else is in the database, who else is a DNA match for you above a certain percentage of like, this person may be your second to fifth cousin. So I went through over 800 entries and found 17 people that had 70% of a DNA match to my father, paternal DNA match. And I emailed every single one of them. This is where I say the power of email is incredible. I emailed every one of them. And one woman, like multiple of them emailed me back, but one woman emailed me back and she was like, I'm pretty sure, without a doubt, you're my uncle's daughter. And I found my father. And I found my entire, like other half of my family that I didn't even know existed.
Isn't that wonderful? Wow. Oh my God.
Right? It's incredible. It's incredible. So yeah.
Oh wow, that's a wonderful thing. I tell you what, you are helped. You are somebody has you right there. I think.
I do believe. Yes, I do believe so.
It feels that way. Wow. All right. So if you don't mind, this is a nice transition, actually, segue into the last thing I'd like to ask you about, which is the book you're working on.
Yes. So I am writing. It's written. It's called the Metaphysical Cannabis Oracle Deck, and it's essentially a tarot deck, but it's an oracle deck. So it's got more than what you would normally find in a regular tarot deck. I've created cards that educate you on how to consume. There's a consumption suit. Like think of a regular deck of cards, and you've got your suits of your cards here. I've got ones that are education on cannabis, ones that are just specifically ancient African oracles that most of us have never even heard of. And all of the original tarot has been incorporated to have metaphysical and cannabis elements in them. And just a brief overview, metaphysical means beyond the physical. And it goes back to, I started a podcast in 2018, and I called it Metaphysical AF, where I essentially just teach, about all these different things that I've learned about, and I share my knowledge in podcast format. And I was able to bring a lot of my podcast format and the things that I talk about and the ethereal things that we're interested in, but we don't even know where to begin a lot of the times, and put them into a card form so that it's really educational and it's really just, it's very beautiful to look at. The artist is from Vancouver, and she's also Nigerian, and her name is Edge. Her website's artofedge.com. She's done some Magic the Gathering cards, and she is a muralist and just very fantastical and whimsical. She literally turned my words into the most beautiful art that I have ever seen, and I cannot wait to share it. It publishes in July, and it'll be available everywhere.
I can't wait to see it.
Yeah, it's going to be so fantastic.
I'm going to have to, I would love you to do a reading. I would love you to try to help me figure things out, because it sounds like all the things you're telling me tell me that you are putting together all of these pieces as a way for people to communicate with themselves, to understand themselves better. So we hear people in cannabis talking about, oh, dude, I got so high, and your point sounds like that's never your point. It's that getting high is not the point, right?
Right.
I mean, that may be a result, but that's not the destination. That's
right.
That's
and then
the portal.
What? You're high, and now what?
And that's where you are. That's where you are. You're in the now what part.
Yep.
Right.
Absolutely.
You're in the communication with the plant part.
Absolutely. I think
Wonderful.
that's really how we move. I think that's how we move things forward, even when it comes to policy and politics. And the more that it's the people who have no relationship with the plant, who know nothing about the plant, are the ones who are in charge of what happens with the plant right now. So we have to change that. And the only way we can do that is to educate ourselves.
Yeah, so important. And this brings me to probably the next logical thing, which is people talk about in our zone, in our industry, in our in our space. People talk about the endocannabinoid system all the time, as if it's second nature. Like, of course, we have an endocannabinoid system, but I believe that most people don't know what we're talking about, right? So they don't know that your body makes cannabinoids on its own. And when the body is lacking something because it's under stress or it's worked too hard or whatever, then like any other mineral or vitamin, your body gets depleted, your thyroid, your immune system gets depleted, gets run down. And so when you're gonna like this, it gets you right back to functional foods, right? Which is your body naturally gravitates toward those things that you need. Right? Sometimes you don't even know why you want to have a hamburger, or why you want to have broccoli, or why you want to have something else. Why your body says, I need orange juice right now, because your body has a need. And the endocannabinoid system is like Legos, I think of it really, right? Which is that it has gaps, right? And maybe it's missing a little something. And so that is why you're drawn to those things. It works naturally with the way your body works.
I love that. They're like Legos. That is such a good visualization, because everybody can see the missing piece in the Lego or the puzzle. Like it just
plugs in. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, I think so. And I think the other thing is like vitamins, when we take vitamins, take a multivitamin, and whatever the body doesn't need goes through, right? And so if you're very healthy, everything goes through, and it's, whatever color and all that, of course, but I mean, it just goes through. It's the same thing with cannabis, right? The body doesn't absorb the things it doesn't want, it sends them out.
Right.
So the body has a full system, the endocannabinoid system, that works. And to me, here we are in COVID time, and which is a disease of inflammation and immune system. And we have a plant that reacts directly with our immune system and our and the nervous system, right? So, I mean, it's a perfect match for this time in history and in our lives. It's amazing.
It is really amazing. And one of the things that I learned a long time ago through a woman who was a Cherokee shaman, she told me that, and I've read this in multiple books, that the indigenous believe that every person has a master plant for their body that will completely match up and heal them. That it's meant to work with you. And the indigenous believed that. And that was a way of life. So the beginning of civilization, our ancient ancestors worshipped cannabis. So I think that it's just a matter of time till we get back to that, but it's like literally in our blood.
I read a thing. This is just going to delve into one thing I read about you, which is, I can't remember where though, where you talked about the plants and the music that the plants make.
Yes. So a few years ago, I met a woman.
This is gonna take people out into space a little bit, but it's okay. Let's go.
It's super interesting. It shows, what I learned is that we all emit, like we know we are a vibration, like we know that, but that has a sound. Like, we're emitting sound. Everything is our bodies, the plants, and everything. So I met a woman who used this really great technology, and it's just basically like EKG panels, and then you hook them into a MIDI processor for a computer. So, like, to make music. And she put the EKG panels on a plant, and the plant, you could hear the vibrational response of the plant through sound. So you could hear the song of the plant. And I was like, this is amazing. Oh my God. We went to the Emerald Cup and we set up a whole thing in the VIP area one year where you could come in and sit in a gaming chair, like a gamer's chair that has speakers in it, and listen to the music of cannabis plants. Like, listen to the plants, like actual produced music of the vibrational sounds. And you can learn so much. The plant can tell you if it's healthy or not. Like, if the music is discordant and like wonky, and like it literally is a way to learn. It's like they're speaking to us. And you can do it with people as well. So you can use these devices and hold hands with someone and make a song together that is completely different. Then it will never be duplicated. It can never be duplicated, because you are never emitting the same frequency ever. You're constantly in flux. You're constantly in flow. And like, if I could give Elon Musk one of these things and hear the song of Elon, that would just be like, this is,
seriously heavy metal.
Elon smoking that joint on Joe Rogan with the music, the sound of him playing, that would be incredible. Like, the potential of these little devices, it's fascinating. And I think it just connects us more. I think it makes us realize, oh, wow, like, I do know when someone comes in a room and they have really bad vibes, because I can feel it. I can almost hear the song of what they're singing, like, of what they're emitting. So I think it brings a really good awareness to everybody.
So do you think now, so next question for me would be, because I have sort of a musical background as well, when people who are really copacetic, when they would get together in the room, did they create a harmony?
I don't know.
Maybe. I don't know.
I haven't seen a lot of people doing the people music.
There's work to be done.
There's work to be done. I would absolutely love to see that. I would, yeah, I've got a lot of ideas on how people can create songs. I think it's really
I have a feeling you do. Or do people create a harmony with the planet, right? That would be the thing, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Do those waves, I mean, if it's measured on sine waves or whatever, do those waves come together in a way when the person touches the plant? That would be
the music reacts. Like, you can hear the music react. Like, I would give we did an event in Denver in February of 2018 where we brought this little like cannabis plant in, and we put the little nodes on it and it made music. And then I showed everyone how Reiki works. I was like, I'm gonna say a symbol in my head and I'm gonna put my hands next to this plant, and I want you to listen to the music and see if you notice the difference. And that's when people realized in the room that, like, oh, you're doing, like, your energy can affect other things, and you don't know that unless you can hear it or visibly see something. So it really, it was just, I think that everybody went home and like had a better relationship with their cannabis after that. They were like, I love you, thank you, like, and like, why, how do, we know from the Japanese study about water that like sound affects things. So like, why not tell your cannabis you love it? Like,
oh, yeah, that's amazing. Oh my God, you are so interesting. I mean, it's just, you are so interesting. I have so enjoyed talking to you, Maggie. I can't even tell you. This has been the best. This has been the most interesting, expansive interview that I've ever had. You make me think of things that I never thought of before. I think, and it seems like that's what you're all about, really.
That really is. I love expanding people's minds. That's what it's all about.
Well, you've done it today. Thank you very much. I so appreciate your time. I know you're the chief marketing officer for an up and coming great cannabis brand, Fruit Slabs. So I can push the name out there again. You're one of the very few women, but a growing group as a chief, the C-suite of a cannabis company in the biggest market in the world, in California. You've talked about how Fruit Slabs, just quickly, you mentioned that Fruit Slabs is really an intellectual property kind of company, because the way that you're going to be able to expand into different states is through the recipes, not through transporting actual material, but transporting the ideas and the recipes and all of the emotion and all of everything that you've discussed as a functional food. That's how you will transport across state borders, which of course simplifies the whole dormant commerce clause and everything. Doesn't matter. None of that matters, right? So that is all really, really super powerful. The idea that you guys are making functional food that is a conscious or conscientious consumption. Did I get that right?
Yeah,
conscious consumption.
Yeah, conscious consumption. Absolutely.
See, the alliteration works. See, it helps. It
exactly.
Keeps it in the air. See, I'm a good student. Yeah.
You're a great student.
Yeah. So it's really been it's been such a terrific honor for me to talk to you and to get to know you a little better. And please say hi to Brandon. Thank you very much for the loan, for loaning yourself out today for us.